Uh, Z, you're muted.
Z.
Sorry, I was fixing a tab as well. Hey everybody, welcome to the New Left. Tonight we have a couple of intense stories for you. We're going to be going over a couple of shootings that happened this weekend, mostly the one in Buffalo. We're also going to be going over the one in Orange County, and we're going to go over a little bit of the one in Houston, Texas as well. There were 3 this weekend, and I think there were actually 4. Then we're going to go talk about us going back into Somalia and some of the contradictions that we see between Somalia and the Ukraine situation with NATO. And speaking of NATO, tonight we're also going to be talking about Turkey versus NATO and how Turkey has been wants to deny Finland and Sweden their access into the North American, what I like to call terrorist organization, not North Atlantic terrorist organization. But let's get started. We're going to get started with the Buffalo shooting. So what were y'all doing when y'all heard that?
I was doom scrolling on Twitter while taking a break from altering clothes for some of my friends. Because, and it was absolutely horrifying because I live in a neighborhood a lot like the neighborhood that was terrorized by the shooting. And we have that same type of supermarket. And all these people who were killed just going out and getting groceries, like doing normal everyday stuff by an asshole, an egotistical madman, who's been bought into this lie that the right is peddling to destroy all these people's lives. It was horrifying. And then to discover that it actually had been planned not just on 4chan but on Discord as well. Part of it wasn't that surprising because if you're on online gaming at all, you'll know that people think they can act any way they want to online.
Yeah, online gaming discourse, especially when you get into the chats and you're playing. I know you hear a lot of unsavory opinions and a lot of unsavory words in general, but
yeah, but especially and it just, people aren't safe anywhere. Like, they've never been safe. But if you can't even be safe going out and getting groceries,
that's like the most most non-political fucking thing ever. Yeah. It's like, I'm just trying to go get some fucking food. Like,
yeah, and the irony that people were responding, oh, we should vote, or we should put more money in the police and stuff like that's going to solve anything, when in fact it's made it worse, is laughable.
Yeah, like the police show up there, they're like, do you want McDonald's or Burger King on the way downtown? It's like, fuck them. You don't want...
Like, when we see all these police-related shootings, they'll shoot unarmed people all the time because of their ethnicity, because they're disabled, or Mm-hmm. But if it's somebody who happens to be white and they are unarmed or armed, or even if they're doing a mass shooting, they'll let them go back across state lines. They'll get them food. They'll safely escort them into custody. This is such a messed up country, and it seems to be burning down around us, and hopefully it won't take us with it.
Agreed. Comrade K?
When I heard about this shooting, no joke, I was actually out getting myself lunch at my local Mucha Burrito, and I had just picked up my food, and I sat down outside quickly to fix my shoes, and I opened Twitter because I have a problem. And then I looked at this article, and I was like, shit, that's, and I thought to myself, okay, what could possibly be the motivation of a mass shooting in this period. And then I read the article a little bit, and it said it took place in a predominantly black neighborhood. And I'm like, I don't even need to read the rest of the article. I know exactly what it was.
You see that, and then you just close it. You're like, okay.
Yeah, it's like, I know exactly what
have
happened. Then I get on the news, and it's like, he appears to have been a white supremacist targeting black people. And I'm like, yep, I knew it. And then I decided, you know what? Let's take a look at this guy's manifesto, because I actually did take a look at his manifesto. It's very disgusting. It is deranged. Disgusting. It is filled with white replacement theory bullshit. And what he did, the classic thing of putting a photograph of Sam Hyde in the manifesto. If y'all don't know who Sam Hyde is, good. But Sam Hyde is this guy who's basically a white supremacist troll on YouTube, or people think he is or isn't because he's constantly joking. And mass shooters, or people who stand mass shooters, they put pictures of Sam Hyde in their manifesto so they can trick the police into thinking that this guy is the shooter, or trick the media into thinking that this guy is the shooter, so that when the media reports on it, it makes people who actually give a shit about white supremacy look bad by misidentifying the shooter. It's all really, really weird. But
that's very strange. Like, every time it's like, this guy.
Every time. Well, he is a piece of shit, but he hasn't shot anything up yet. So thank God for that. But the thing is, this in America, the gun debate, I find disgusting. And I'm just hearing the same shit over and over. The conservatives are like, we need more guns. And the liberals are like, we need less guns. And it's just that or the other. And nobody on the news, nobody is connecting white supremacist violence with poverty and the far right using disenfranchised Americans to their advantage for like recruitment and shit. Because there are plenty of other countries that have a lot of guns that don't have nearly this much gun violence, because as it turns out, those countries aren't built on foundations of white supremacy. They're built on foundations of other things, which aren't exactly great, but I wouldn't compare that shit to the United States. Nobody is addressing the fact that the poor material conditions that the Democrats and the Republicans have allowed to seep into American society, have allowed to just destroy American society, has directly contributed to the rise of desperate white supremacy. This guy was like, what, 18 years old? I'm 22 years old. Yeah.
It's so young. That's so young. Dude, like, think about like being radicalized at all, but being radicalized that young, like that over those course of years. Because what did he say? He started he's like in the manifesto, which if you can find it, I implore you to read it, because it gives you a very good insight into how white supremacists are thinking and what they're doing, and how there might not be a one organization. It's supposed to be seen as a lone wolf organization. I mean, not an organization. It's supposed to be seen as a lone wolf. It's when it's actually a decentralized fucking movement that these people might not know each other, but they're all getting the signals and they're all getting the dog whistles that are being thrown out there. Either it comes from like anyone from like Tucker Carlson to fucking when Rush Limbaugh's alive, he was doing the same fucking thing. Rest in piss, by the way.
Yeah, rest in piss to Mr. Rush Limbaugh. But I can't stand people like that. I really can't. The people who peddle all of this just racist bullshit, but they disguise it as just having a different opinion. It's like, I'm not racist, I just have a different opinion, and they peddle it. And then when people actually carry out acts of violence based on their rhetoric, they don't take any responsibility.
And the worst part is, a lot of those people will fucking tell you they don't even believe in most of the shit they're peddling. They just know they're getting millions of dollars, and they know how many people out there are fucking eating it up.
Which, it's fucking, in my opinion, makes it even worse. It's one thing to be brainwashed and to raise up thinking that minorities are evil, that white replacement theory, and to shoot people at will. It's quite another to not believe in it, but to care so little for the welfare of your fellow human being that you choose profit over the literal lives of people. Like, that is the most scary and darkest shit I have ever heard of.
And I want to hop on one more thing with conversation. You talked about the gun debate. Yeah, and when you come back to like you go to like liberal Twitter or in shitlib Twitter, you see Nothing but, well, now we need gun control. Well, now we need gun control. This ain't about guns. This is about the system. Because, like, really, we need to start talking about self-defense movements and shit like that. Because people got to start protecting themselves. Because obviously the FBI will just fucking seize a fucking, they see an email that says, we got fucking clues of shit that's going to happen today. And they're just like, spam. Like, fuck them. Like, they get hit, they get tips and shit all the time.
Have you guys noticed that when it comes to like terror plots in the United States, when it comes to, say, Muslim fundamentalists that they claim are about to cause a terrorist attack or something like that, they immediately jump on them, they raid the apartment, they take pictures of all the guns, they have them in custody and shit. But when it comes to white supremacists that are borderline, they're telling everyone in their life, I'm about to do some shit, man. The FBI is just sitting there like, we think this guy may be a little bit crazy.
Well, I can explain that pretty easily. Fundamentalism is a cancer on society, regardless of what you think of it, whether it's political fundamentalism or religious fundamentalism. You know, and evangelicals have done some pretty whacked up shit. Muslims have, Jews have, so on, so forth, so on, throughout the centuries and in infinity. But the reason why is that it's easy to point out Muslims because many Muslim women wear hijabs, or Muslim men, they have beards. In many cases, they look a little different, or they might speak multiple languages, or they are in stereotypical professions. So they're a visible minority that they could point to and say, "Hey, this is the person doing it." And also kind of think about, because of the way the immigration system works here, it is easier to immigrate if you have advanced degrees than if you don't. So the Muslim population in the United States, at least immigrant population, is way more educated than the population at large. Yeah. So there might be a little bit of hatred at the fact that, oh, they're becoming doctors, they're taking jobs away from us.
Well, the other thing is that I remember when we were talking to Arami the other week, and he was talking about the fact that if like you'll see, like with the SAT in California, when all the Asian students were getting too many high grades, they just switched the rules and say, oh, well, SAT doesn't count anymore. After all of this, all years, like never not heard my whole life that SAT didn't count. Honestly, and all of a sudden, when you start getting beat, okay, SAT out the window.
Yeah, we're seeing that everywhere.
Kick those people in
California, but they're rigging the tests, they're rigging everything so that white people are more successful, and especially with how they're doing the diversity clauses and diversity actions, which benefit white women more than anybody else. Instead of benefiting more marginalized populations.
Hey, Austin, where were you when you heard about the?
I was doom scrolling on Twitter just like all of you.
K, you put it well. It's like, I have a problem because I have a problem.
Yep.
Yeah,
you do the thing when you like.
We'll start. Yeah, there we go. Hashtag Twitter Anonymous. Would that work? No, I don't think that works. It's a little counterintuitive.
Unfortunately, Twitter is one of the quickest ways to get information from a lot of different reputable sources in real time.
If you got a phone and the internet and a computer, you're a known entity. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But anyway, I was there. I saw the Buffalo shooting, and then really minutes later, I saw that there's the Orange County shooting is the way that went, and that was an extremist as well. But I saw that. I saw that the Buffalo guy seemed to be maybe known, but you made a point earlier about how it's not a gun issue, and I tend to agree. I mean, guns have issues for sure, but a red flag law, I wouldn't have caught this kid. Yeah. I mean, hell, they couldn't catch that dude up in Las Vegas with all those munitions, took out 55 folks or whatever at that country music concert.
A lot of these people don't even have records.
Exactly.
Which is something about our culture of of policing, where they're more interested in blaming and attacking minorities for crimes or just for living than they
That's
are
leadership,
for
though.
following up.
That's the institution and the leadership.
Yeah,
That's
then
what they
following
prioritize.
right, exactly. Then following up on real leads, the important things. Like if people were actually doing some real investigation, like some honest police
Well,
work, they were trying to help community, they would be following these leads and letting people leaving other people alone.
And I want to
you
say
said
one more thing because I want to get back to the article really fast. But I wanted to say earlier, and over you're talking about how easy it is to just point the finger. Yeah, it's so much easier to just hate on something than it is to like sit there, have the actually talk like truth about it and have like and talk about uncomfortable truths and like instead of just pointing at something because it's fucking different. Like it's way easier to just be like, oh, that sucks. Like that's the problem. So
like, bring me some solutions.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But police were the guy's name was Peyton whatever Peyton something, but Peyton here police released that it was a rape. Obviously, it was a hate crime, and it was motivated by white supremacy. And there were 10 victims. Rest in peace. And here are the victims' names. We had Roberta Drury, who was 31, Marcus D. Morrison, 52, Andre McNeil, 53, Geraldine Talley, 62, Celeste Cheney, 65, Hayward Patterson, 68, Catherine Massey, 72, Pearl Young, 77, Ruth Whitfield, 86. And then you'll have people like Kamala Harris come out and tell you that America is not a racist country. When you have in less than a decade, two like over like a double digit of black people being killed in their space that they are dominating, whether it be the church in Charleston by Dylan Roof or this mass shooting.
Right. And
these are all grandmothers. I think.
Yeah, they're all like
yes, exactly.
I think one of them was an activist forever for their whole life as well.
And we need to be clear. This was an execution. He shot them, went up to them, shot them again, and made sure they were dead.
With plans to do more.
Exactly. With here's your reparations, nigger, and nigger written on there on his gun. Live streaming this on Twitch like a first person shooter.
That makes me want to cry, man.
Yeah, it's fucking disgusting. This is one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard. Like, at least like, and Daryl was a piece of shit. At least he sat with them and like thought about it. He was like, I'm gonna think about this for a second, but then he just decided to do it. Like he was talking about this motherfucker, like just came in, started shooting, and then made sure they were dead. Just like fucking disgusting. And you're telling me, and it's like there's no issues going on here.
I know, and people are going to claiming mental illness with the shooter and the shooters of these other mass shootings. And who cares? If you're mentally ill, regardless, that doesn't give you an excuse to kill somebody.
Yeah.
And
right.
Second, why at this point are we giving people murderous excuses? Why are we tolerating this behavior, this discourse in our society, and not actively calling out and not actively fighting against it?
And I think this one's I think another thing about this one in particular is that you really can't you can't play footsie with this one, because this one's either you are a piece of shit for like being like, oh, whatever, or you know what's going on. I mean, because it's plain as day. He has what's written on his fucking gun, where he went, his manifesto, all of it's like straight up like hard. Like you can't. There's no way you can fucking be like, no, he wasn't racist. He was just. And I implore anyone who can and DM me. I'll send it to you. I downloaded it. The manifesto. Read it. This kid is crazy, but he's not crazy enough not to be held competent. Because he had a fucking AMA with himself.
What?
He's just sitting there answering quick. Do you believe in this? Well, no. Like when a company you're asking like a company some shit. He's doing that job interview. He did a job interview for white nationalism on his fucking manifesto. No person who's not mentally competent enough would be able to do that. This is not in one shot. And it comes from things like we're seeing this far right, and the algorithms that we're getting on YouTube and the algorithms that we're getting on all these sites because they're fucking pushing people, especially a lot of people like we were talking about earlier from the gaming realm. They're pushing a lot of people into fucking far right nationalism, and it also happened in Brazil too. And that's why YouTube will be so quick to take down a left wing fucking video and leave all this right wing trash up.
Well, in the right wing, they're talking about like co-opting things, video games. They're into anime. They're fucking into Warhammer. They're into all, they watch fucking what is it, Northmen. They're all jerking off over the Northmen right now because it's so white, I guess.
A lot of entertainment has fascist aesthetics.
Fuck yes, it does. And I'll be the first one to say there's a lot of fucking fascist aesthetics and a lot of anime. Not even gonna fucking play. And I'm a weeb. Like, I'll fucking tell you right now. It's not like there was no fucking person held accountable in Japan after World War II. They just had to fucking denounce their emperor. So obviously they still have fascist. They have fascist tendencies.
Very much.
Yeah, I think in his fucking manifesto, he made a little warship about that.
Oh my god!
I think it was something like if white people all die out, at least the Japanese are there.
What?
So,
what the fuck?
This is fucking.
It's what? No, is the best. I think this has been the one, especially since, dude, when the manifesto came out. That's the worst part. They scrubbed that shit so fast that she got scrubbed immediately. Like, I tried to share it. I was like, hey, check this out with my buddies. And he sent me a 404, sent me a forbidden page that didn't exist anymore. And I was like, what the fuck? So I had to go find it really fast, and fuck that. No, people need to see that shit because they don't want you to see it because of how competent and how sound it was. Like, if you won't see a crazy kid when you see it. You'll see a normal person.
Which is one of the reasons why we really need to be using critical thinking when engaging in social media and online platforms. I'm not saying, oh, all video games are bad or whatever, or video games made this guy a white nationalist. Like, he was a white nationalist before that. However, like, if there's some crap going down, then you need to either call it out or report it or actually do stuff to keep going it. Unfortunately, I found, at least on Xbox, reporting people out for saying the N-word, for making threats, for doing all sorts of things, Islamophobic remarks. Nothing really happens. However,
I thought you were going to say that they actually, like, sometimes do something about it. I was like, nothing happens. Like,
it's literally a meme to say that people in Xbox Live rallies are the most racist people ever, and they're all like 12 years old.
Well, it's not the American console.
Yeah, but that's what it thinks that we have to keep talking about it, and we have to keep, worrying out and watching it out with our friends and stuff. And people we talk to online and in person, if you see somebody having these inclinations, maybe kind of check in on them and try to start steering them back toward the right path.
And avoid anime profile pictures, because that's just like the fucking most toxic people I've ever. Like,
yeah,
that, like,
right.
Bro,
it's so easy to get started on one of these paths, thinking that it is innocent, and then for somebody to just fall down this rabbit hole and get indoctrinated and brainwashed into believing this way. Their actions are still their fault. But if you could talk to somebody, try to prevent it from happening, it would be worth a shot.
If you can prevent this, yeah. It's just, there's so, like, it's one of those things though, like Comrade K, you said earlier, the fact about being like, there's a bunch of desperate white people out here because they feel like they're getting fucking replaced.
Yeah. Because they're being screwed over, but not by brown and black people.
Exactly. They are being screwed
by
over.
White people. And
you have
white people are screwing white people over.
Yeah.
White, like in England went, oh, look at Ireland. We're gonna enslave them. Like, they did that. Like, they're like, before Irish people were white, they were slaves.
That's why people in Wales are like, nah, that ain't me, man.
Come on, man. This is very I know we can find some humor in all of this shit because these people are morons, and it's really funny to dissect their worldview and shit. But at the end of the day, I'm still staring at the list of people who are no longer here, and what I want to get home want to hammer home very quickly. It's like the number one thing people will do when they defend their great replacement rhetoric, like people like Tucker Carlson, like I can already picture it. They'll be like, oh, you can blame us all you want, but freedom of speech. Freedom of speech works like this, okay? Let's disregard the Constitution and all that shit. Let's just think of the idea for a second. This is how it works. If you use your freedom of speech to directly harm other people for their identity, for something they had no choice of from birth, or their religion or whatever, then your freedom of speech is null and void because you are now using it to attack other people's freedoms. These people that we see on this article, they can't enjoy their freedoms anymore because they're fucking dead. And all because there are people out there that are peddling this really racist rhetoric. So we need to understand that once you use your freedoms to take away other people's freedoms and usurp other people's freedoms, your freedoms should be null and void. That's how fascists come to power. And we need to stop giving people the excuse of mental illness. I know a lot of mentally ill people. None of them are fascists. Because guess what? Mentally ill people are people. There's mentally ill people who are pieces of shit, mentally ill people who aren't. Are we going to sit here and say that the entire Nazi party that took power in Germany was just a bunch of people in straitjackets?
The hallucination thing, it's like, it was a hallucination. It's like, who gives a fuck? Like who cares if it was a hallucination? People fucking still knowing shit's wrong.
Yeah,
right.
Wrong.
Right, Kay, you're absolutely correct. And in actuality, this should be punishable by law because there is Supreme Court cases and there's laws pending, like saying you can't shout fire in a crowded movie theater. Yeah. So that is technically enshrined in our law.
Exactly. There are limits. There should be limits to things.
There are limits, but they're not enforced because it's considered to be not a big deal.
But Western democracy doesn't want, when it turns on the actual people who are the inheritors of the actual system, that is when it becomes a problem. Because until their free speech is challenged, there's no issue. Like free speech. And then when someone's like, you can't say that to them, they're like, oh, well, shit, free speech.
Or if they get
Nazi speech is not free speech.
Face.
Exactly. They're not free from consequence.
No, freedom.
Definitely not free from consequence.
That's terrible.
But we don't even know what that fucking word means anymore for people who
consequence. They could do whatever they want. A world where they can do whatever they want and not receive any consequences. The best, and well, I guess you could say not the silver lining, but like the bow on top of this big shit Christmas present is the fact that Joe Biden started making calls to fight white supremacy in America and shit like that. And I know he's not actually going to, because he probably is one himself because of his support of the crime bill and all that shit. And he himself peddled replacement theory. Just
he's a structural white supremacist. We have the structural white supremacists, then we have the paramilitary groups that are on the ground that are just citizens who hide under the Second Amendment. And when shit gets fucking like heated and they go out and fucking police shit.
Yeah, definitely. Let me be perfectly clear with anyone watching. Fighting white supremacy, it begins with all of us. Don't sit back and wait for any president to say, now we got to declare war on white supremacy. America loves declaring war on shit, but everything does, it never wins. So you want to fight white supremacy? Then take away the very thing that is allowing white supremacists to recruit the average person. You must fight poverty by any means necessary. You must improve the material conditions that are so bad in America it allows fascism to rise. Nobody turns to a racist manifesto and stuff like that when, well, I don't want to say no one turns to a racist manifesto.
Because there will be still, like, the world is never going to be fucking perfect.
It's never going to be perfect.
You can minimize the damage to where it's not fucking a threat. Like, to where it's there's never not going to be that until until people can actually fucking have time to have their material conditions, sit down, then we can have different conversations about other things that get us closer to that goal. But we're not even anywhere close to that.
Yeah, we can't have these conversations about, everyone has like socially ingrained prejudices and biases because we're born and raised in a society where we're trained to hate each other from birth, right? No matter who you are. And essentially, these things stay with us for a long time. But there's a difference between people like that and the people who are so desperate that they turn to these horrible people to alleviate their pain. But by the day, because these seeds are implanted into all of us, their numbers are growing. So before we can have those, while we're having those conversations about deconstructing who we are on the inside and tearing down these social barriers, we have to be sure and we have to be certain that the people we're having these conversations with aren't going to get up and shoot us the next day, no matter who you are. So I think the priority here is we should all prioritize the fight against white supremacy from a grassroots perspective. Don't wait for the politicians to do it. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, and encourage the alleviation of poverty by any means necessary and the deconstruction of these social prejudices that mostly white people have been raised with in the United States.
There's a definite specter on the pressing down on the fucking West right now, and it is definitely not communism. I'm gonna play this orange. I want to move on to the Orange County thing real fast. That shooting. This shooting took place in Orange County, California.
If you actually go into any bookstore in Israel and ask for the New Testament in Hebrew, they're going to look at you as if you failed.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Oh my God. You mentioned before that, God, these racist shooters, man, they're everywhere. And the fact that these things are happening more and more people are getting emboldened to commit these horrible acts of violence against marginalized people. And that's not to say that violence against the marginalized has never been much of a problem until now. It always has been. But in this age where everything is sensationalized and everything is
definitely a ramping up.
Yeah, within minutes of these things happening, like every time this happens, I could just picture like the next shooter is probably watching this broadcast and they're like, you know what? I bet I could beat that guy's record or something like that. It's very, very disgusting and disturbing. And in churches of all places where people are just like, they just worship in peace. They can't even worship in peace without being shot. You are a piece of shit for pulling off a mass shooting, but you're just another kind of piece of shit to prey on people and when they're just going about their lives in a church of all places.
It's always a vulnerable spot. It's always a vulnerable spot. It's never like fucking, you never run up on people who already fucking have guns. They're fucking cowards. They never fucking people who are just fucking out on a shooting range. They never come out there and fucking be like, all right, we're gonna fucking fuck with them. No, they fuck with people in clubs. They fuck with people in grocery stores, in churches. Like you said, just doing normal everyday like things that they want to just live their like literally just trying to live.
And this was a sorry for interrupting, but this was actually a really well known church in the area, multicultural one. They had services in multiple languages. It was fully accessible. They even had ASL interpreters and would have their services online for people who couldn't make it due to COVID. And they were doing outreach to the community. So this was one of the more involved churches in the area. And that's especially frustrating because, you know, when you see shootings like this, you're thinking, I shouldn't go anywhere. I shouldn't stop and help anybody. I shouldn't do anything because, you know, some lunatic, some evil person is going to decide that because of where I'm at, because of who I am, because of my friends, my family, that I deserve to die today. You know? And that is not okay. And I don't understand anybody who is shrugging it off as it is. And we have had a mass shooting a day, multiple mass shootings a day this year in this country.
And let's be clear, like, this is also one of those things where, like, this is also a white supremacist shooting. It wasn't directly done by a white person. It was a Taiwanese man who was having issues with the tensions right now rising between China and Taiwan. But what happens right now when you go on the news right now on any news channel, fucking from Fox to CNN, they're fucking being like, there was literally the other day there was a fucking thing about what happens if we went to war with China, like on CNN, not Fox, and they're the ones talking about Chinese skulls, like sitting on a fucking throne of Chinese skulls. So this is still the work of fucking white supremacist power structures doing, and it just happened to be unfortunately a Taiwanese man doing the work for it.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
I have a friend on Instagram who's an artist. She's half part Vietnamese, part Taiwanese, part Native American. She's very, her family's very extended.
Yeah.
And her grandfather, who was, he clearly wasn't white, right, was part of the KKK, or at least he was affiliated with the KKK, right? And he changed after like being shunned by the fellow members of the KKK because for obvious reasons. But it's white supremacy is ingrained into everybody, right? And white supremacy projects itself onto the people it hurts in many different ways. Like a good example would be when people are brought to America, or they come to America either by force through America's history or willingly when they're looking for a line of work, you're in a different environment, and you're in an environment that's incredibly hostile towards you and people like you, and that changes you, and it's ingrained into everybody who's ever been born on American soil. And sometimes people who you wouldn't expect to fall for this kind of shit do end up falling for this kind of shit. Like homophobia, I can think of, is something that's prevalent in literally every single different community across America. And that's because it's a white supremacist thing, but no one thinks about that. And so I'm not really surprised here. I'm sorry that I feel so bad for those families, man.
No, it's
get that call.
It's just fucked up. No one should fucking have that call of someone being taken by someone else. Mm-hmm. Like there's no, like, if you're gonna pass, you want it to be from at least from like a disease. Like you don't want it to be a disease, obviously. But if it was a disease, at least it wasn't a fucking person like who fucking just like, you want it to be from like, life's already fucking hard enough, man.
You don't want your life taken away by anybody just because they woke up deciding that you didn't deserve to live.
Exactly. Yeah. Who the fuck are you to? Who the fuck are you to say? Who the fuck are you to say no one should have the fucking right to live anywhere? It's bullshit. It's just.
Austin.
I do want to say the last shooting. I want to go real fast. I'm just gonna say it real fast. The last shooting, I looked into it a little bit. It turned out to be a dispute between some Hispanic fellows, and they just were shooting each other in the market. Like there's white supremacy in there because you have some tribalism going on and shit like that. But it turned out like I was like, this is, oh God.
Okay, what is this, like a Western now?
Yeah, they were arguing.
Why did you pick like the abandoned road if you're gonna do that?
Flea market.
Ideally not do that, but
flea market, mind you.
Oh, come on.
That's like fucked up. Like that needs to so
personally, I kind of have a theory about this.
Our country, like in gun violence, not even count like just gun violence period, needs to chill the fuck out. Like that, just
Personally, I kind of have a little theory about this. About white supremacy, all this, stuff being on the rise. I think a lot of it's due to the pandemic and people losing their jobs, losing employment, getting sick, all these things going on, and because of the death tolls rising so much from COVID-19 and the after effects of it.
And it's broken a lot of people. Like
it's broken a lot of people, and people who used to see the value of human life now just see numbers. So
Yeah.
who cares?
It's fucking terrible. But we're gonna have to come back, because this is, we can talk about this for hours. So we definitely move on to the next. Speaking of white supremacy in foreign policy, we're going to move on to the Somalian invasion of America. We're going back to Somalia, y'all. After last year,
good.
2 years ago, Trump was like, we're gonna get out of there for a little bit, and Biden's like, part 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Mm-hmm.
So Austin and I, with Luden, on our previous show, Professional Abscess, which we're kind of doing on a random basis now, we actually talked about Somalia about a year ago, and yeah, we did.
It's wild that like in a couple months that like it'll be like we've been on this group for like a year.
Yeah, we talked about this. Like, it was one of our first episodes. We were talking about Trump getting out of Somalia, and all the things that were going in, and the possibility of the U.S. going back in, because we were actually talking about this a year ago.
Yeah.
And now they've actually done it. Austin, take it away.
Yes. So Somalia, couple things. So they had a new president, but not a new president. An old president got elected after a term of office. Basically, by all appearances, he's fired up, or not fired up. He got in touch with Biden, started talking, changed their minds, what have you, because they're extremists. Every country has them. Their extremists happen to be Al-shabab, which actually was Al-Qaeda, developed off of Al-Qaeda, which I think we made, the U.S. and CIA. I think we're fighting our old enemies, anyway. So they brought the rockets back, or they brought the drones back, and you look back, and very easy to find. Like, found this article, the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. I'll drop it in the chat here in a minute, but it goes through all the airstrikes from 2001, start of the global war on terrorism, all the way up till, it looks like the last drone strike was a few months ago. But this, though, what is this really about? It's not about really the extremists, in my opinion, because the chaos allows opportunity. The chaos is a profit margin. Yeah. And really, it's that, I guess we go neo-colonialism. I don't know. Techno-colonialism. Yeah, there we go. Techno-colonialism. Because that whole swath, that whole region is so rich in minerals, and these minerals are for the green revolution, right? And all the batteries and yada yada storage that needs to happen for solar to work. But looking at all this, I'm like, okay, they have a huge drought going on for a while. The Civil War, it says it's I was like, it's a 30. I heard on, it's a 30-year Civil War. No, man, that shit started. So it really started with the Ogaden War, the Ethiopia-Somalia War, where
what year is that?
This is 1978.
Oh,
and
shit.
So this has been going on for a long time.
Yes. So this war occurred, Somalia and Ethiopia. Somalia wanted Ethiopia's stuff, and Somalia had been backed by the Russians and were a communist government, but he flipped into authoritarian, and then he became backed by the U.S. Hey, we got a dictator, right?
He's
Okay,
like, I'm playing both
dictator.
sides, so I always come out on top.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and then the Russians in '78, they immediately flipped to start helping not just the Russians, the Cubans sent military over to back the Ethiopians. So that's where all this started.
I gotta read about this because that is a very interesting like I've never heard of that.
Yeah, as soon as I saw like Cuban deployments, I was like, because I expected Russian deployments, but I was like, oh shit, okay. So yeah, it's, you know, history is amazing, you know, rich, and you know, everything that you see happening today, it's old. Like there ain't no new beat. Yeah, there ain't no new nothing under the sun really, and we've been there since the 1800s. Like as soon as you know, we went to Japan and forced them to open up their borders.
Exactly.
You know?
I mean, a lot of people don't know that though. Like they don't know we just went to Japan and said, "Hey, you're open."
Depot that ass.
Yeah, there's actually famous paintings about it, and a traditional Japanese opera about it. It's essentially the admiral came and said, "If you don't open the doors, we're going to bomb the city."
Well, y'all got bombs and stuff? Okay.
Like cannonballs. But cannonballs, but still.
We'll go shoot the other people over here. Well, give us some of those so we can go over here and attack.
Now, as far as the so Somalia.
Yes.
Now, you said that their president was already elected before, but he missed a term or something. Like he got ousted from an election and then he got reelected. So it's like him, then another guy, then him again.
With you know, effectively no change there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think I want to say it's something like I could be wrong, but I think the average wage is like 20 cents a day.
Oh my God.
So it's like it's pretty poor country, relatively speaking.
I might be, I could be thinking about 1930s pay per hour because I'm trying to read about Nazis.
But I mean, it doesn't. But I mean, that wouldn't still surprise me if that was still about
really
that much
wouldn't.
a day.
I mean, and so they basically have said, we're with the U.S., we're with Russia, we're with the U.S., we're with Russia. They've done this like their entire since the 70s. Now, are they allied with the U.S.? Are they are they independent? What's going on?
Oh no. They're aligned with the U.S.
So the new president is backed by U.S.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay.
I mean that's the thing is like during the last guy's term with our last guy's term, you know, they agreed to leave, and there's 700 troops there. So I don't know if I didn't see anything about increase or what have you, you know, but yeah, they didn't say shit about contractors. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. So obviously they're not getting it by contract; they're getting it via butt of gun.
Yeah, and you know, of course, anywhere our drones are, and all these years and stuff, that you know, not just the military's been there, CIA's been there. You know.
Now, what minerals do you...
I'm sorry for interrupting, but say the Ethiopian government's allied with the U.S. They're not really on the same level. It's more like the U.S. is telling them what to do. Because by the U.S. able to go in, aren't they also protecting?
Ethiopia is working with China through the Belt and Road Initiative, and you know
we are funding that Tigray. What is it? The Tigray ethnic group that's there, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of cocoa comes from there as well. And Nestle is a fucking huge backer of that fucking regime. That's another thing that happened about 2 years ago, where you have like Juneteenth is official holiday, but on the same day Juneteenth becomes an official holiday, the Supreme Court rules that child slavery in Africa is legal for and you have people who've never even tasted fucking chocolate and they've been picking fucking cocoa their whole lives.
It's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah.
That
So either they're
confuses
working
me
with
a
the
little bit,
Chinese
like
who are giving or
Wait.
who are helping them with economic opportunity in to some degree.
What were you saying, Kay?
the when you mentioned the Tigray uprising, I was a little confused because did you say the U.S. was backing the Tigray uprising?
That's what I thought that, right?
Yeah, because it's like the Tigray uprising. This might just be another Pol Pot situation. Aren't they communists? Aren't they like hardcore?
I don't see. I didn't think that. I need to look more into that again because like it might be like that kind of situation. But as far as I knew that, I'll have to look into that.
The Tigray are communists.
Why would
the U.S. are
back
backing them.
rebels? That's just really
Well,
weird.
Well,
It could be like, okay, so like when a company, like especially if there's company interests, they have every fucking flag. Like they have every flag, whatever flag you want. And I don't care if it's a communist flag, as long as you're doing business, as long as we can get the fuck in your country and take your shit. Like sometimes they will look past that as long as they're like willing to work with them.
Right.
Oh, right. I forgot China.
And with
I mean, look at Venezuela. Flip it on Venezuela. You know?
Oh yeah, we just opened up our we're about to get our oil again from Venezuela.
But
So
they got them.
Maduro shit was for
They're-
nothing.
They're
So,
forcing them to privatize part of their oil, though.
Yeah. No, like that's one of the things that we're actually working on the oil crisis story is how Venezuela, one of the reasons why they ended up in the straits that they were in was because Venezuela nationalized their oil industry and they started charging the US higher rates.
Now I wanted to know what is the mineral mineral in Somalia, the minerals in Somalia that are like the most resource rich and most sought after.
Just a second. Where did I go? Hold on.
And yeah, like Austin said earlier, to everyone listening, the luxuries of the developed world is still on the backs of the global South and their resources.
Right. And so the Tigray is being supported by the US and they're communist and the government is working with China. So it's basically a proxy war between the US and China over corporate interests.
Oh my god, that is the most ideologically confusing fucking shit.
It is
fucking wild. I'm not even like that is some wild shit. Like that's all I have to say. Like
it is like
drink.
Well, China like I remember they pissed off the US because they put airports there, and then there was like some fucking like there was like this US fucking there was this US article that came out that said China took over an airport, but then like the actual thing that happened was like there's like this thing happened. There was like this back and forth, and they're not. It's
what China
ridiculous.
actually did was Ethiopia actually was working on building a lot of infrastructure in the 70s and 80s with Russia before the U.S. Took over and everything collapsed in it, and their economic prosperity died up. So the companies moved on, and Ethiopia was left in its ruinous state. So what China went in and did was they worked with other Ethiopian businesses and people to try to finish up that infrastructure and bring it up to date.
Because Ethiopia is not
Yeah.
They actually have roads and fucking built. Well, Africa itself is like an innovator in the internet because they have had to fucking like talk to each other and shit through like via phone like for so long because they're that
They
far
have
apart.
to build internet. Their advances to internet actually rivals pretty much everywhere else in the world.
Yeah, they have some of
to go it's so fast and it's so
exactly
piecemeal. I think that's the best word for it
mm-hmm.
because they're having to scratch back and work with whichever power can help give them money without causing destruction and doing it. So there's this really delicate balance. So the African countries who've been able to pull this off is actually really, really impressive.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's been enriching the political elites in these countries. So the impoverished are getting their share. So payments are continuing, wages are increasing, and the standard of living is going up.
Well, yeah, I was looking at, I don't know, when Felice was actually, she did a paper on, she had to do a paper on 2 countries. So they had to go over their GDP and all that. Yeah. And you look at like Burkina Faso. which that was where Thomas Sankara came up, and it meant like Burkina Faso translates into the land of the upright, which is fucking awesome name. And like and the other one was New Zealand, and you see like all the resource, all the gold and everything that's in Burkina Faso, and like people are like living terribly there right now. And there's billionaires there because they fucking get their shit, but they get their shit, but they keep fucking over all the people who live there.
Right, exactly, and it's exactly what's happening in the U.S. only in hyperdrive. And when we talk about reparations it shouldn't just be in the U.S. doing reparations for slavery and doing land back and all that, which is really good and we should totally do that. But it's not just giving artifacts back to the people who the artifacts were stolen from, and letting mummies and stuff return to their actual burial resting place. It's going back and giving the money and the wealth to these places like Burkina Faso, so they can lift their people out of poverty.
I also, isn't Ilhan Omar is from Somalia, right?
Yeah.
Has she said anything?
I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, I know. Like usually she's because I saw the other day I saw Rashida Tlaib just like really like she put out something about like I think it was a bill for Palestinians and stuff like that. But I haven't seen anything even like a nod to Somalia from Ilhan Omar, which is, I mean, I know the squad is performative, but that's still kind of odd even for her.
Let me look. Hold on a sec.
Well, both parties are usually bipartisan when it comes to overseas military action, right? So if the squad, anyone in the squad was to be like, this is wrong, then everyone else would come down on them with the wrath of God.
Yeah, that I think that another thing is like people they did go to fucking Washington thinking they were going to do something, and then they got fucking pounded on so fucking hard that they were like, nah, I'm not, I know my place.
This is why this is why I keep telling everyone in my family who tells me, oh, Jason, you care about politics so much. Why don't you get into politics? This is why.
No, change me.
I'll stay here on the ground with good people. I'm not going to go in there and have to betray my values for a political career. But the invasion of Somalia comes not even a year after Joe Biden has pulled out of Afghanistan. And we all know how that went. I can't help but feel that this is like a rebound for the U.S. It's like we haven't been at war with a Middle Eastern country for like 6 months now, guys. We need to find one. Somalia. Yeah, they have too much of those pirates.
Okay,
and the media is cool with it because they're brown.
The only thing I've seen regarding Ilhan Omar and her saying anything about Somalia is a bunch of racists on Twitter saying that we should send her back there along with the troops.
I mean, that was I remember that story. That was like,
so yeah. That's probably part of the reason why she's not sticking out at the moment.
That makes sense. Like I said, even if you look back a couple of years ago, you can see the vocalness just taken out of all of them. Like that one time when fucking AOC said something about Trump, and then Nancy Pelosi came out and said something about her, and then Trump got on her too, and it was just like the whole fucking establishment was coming down. They were not like in that kind of way, but they were like, you need to know your place. Like, and the media wasn't giving her a break either at that point. And now you see that she's like they've been co-opted, and the media's giving them their own shows and their own fucking time to come on there and talk.
They've gotten beaten up so hard. And like, I was a big supporter of the squad. And yes, I think it was right to criticize them about actions and stuff. But at the same time, it's the reason why you don't just need progressives. We're not going to be able to vote ourselves out of this mess. We need to completely change the system from the bottom up.
You vote the system out of it. That doesn't even make sense. You vote the system out of itself. Like what the how does that even work? Like,
we tried that. We actually had some fairly good people voted in, and we saw what happened. And that was under the best of circumstances.
And so after seeing that, people should fucking understand that it ain't. You can't. We're not gonna be able to vote our way out of this fucking mess.
No.
Well, that's because a lot of democratic socialist ideology stops at office. It's not radical enough, because if these squad
Exactly,
members
right.
knew what they were doing, they'd be able to use and harness the power of the working class support that they had garnered to encourage direct action against the state that is trying to subvert progress.
And there was so many people from so many like different, like that energy that was there like a couple years ago.
Right.
The energy shifted to the, like, especially online, the energy is totally fucking shifted to the right. Like there's like the online fucking momentum was on, like you can just see it. Like even all the grifters that came out from like the Bernie Sanders era, because they knew that the left had the energy at that point in time. And then then the ball got dropped so hard, and then
and it's so disappointing. I remember one of the things that I would see, like, you know, they'd be criticized. Oh, they're doing TikToks. Oh, they're doing AMAs on Twitch. Blah, blah, blah. You know, who cares?
That's what regular people do.
Yeah.
I do that shit. Where's my fucking award?
Okay, I don't do TikTok because I'm mostly blind, and I'm not sure if I would actually aim it at my face properly.
But what I wanted to do, I want to get back on. Let's go ahead and move. We have like 30 minutes left. Let's go ahead and move on to the next story, which is we're gonna go over some Turkey and versus some NATO. And Comrade K, if you would kindly take it away.
Hey K, quick question.
Yeah.
You have been really, really working on this subject. Like, you work on your stuff in general, but you've been really, really energized on this.
Yes.
You have personal stakes in this.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you Greek?
Yeah. I am half Greek, half
I knew it. I was like, I think he's half Greek. And police was like, no, he's not half Greek. I was like, no, I think he's half Greek.
Oh yeah.
They're Greek, so the Turks like refuse to acknowledge each other, even though at this point, like, because I'm Croatian, Turkish, and Eastern European.
Mm-hmm.
So don't we like kind of refuse to acknowledge each other's existence most of the time?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes. That's the whole part of being Turkish. It's just when it comes to people you don't want to acknowledge, them. Turks are so ingrained into their own identity. They refer to the Kurds that live in their country as mountain Turks. Okay. And I swear to God, if a Turk marries somebody who's like outside of Turkey and stuff like that, like let's say a Turk marries a fucking Norwegian and brings them back to Turkey, the family will probably joke and cope with the fact that they're from Norway by saying, oh, look, you brought a very Northern European Turk home. That's how fucking like deep it goes. But essentially, yeah, I'm half Greek, half Turkish. My father is the child of two Greek immigrants who came to Canada after the Nazis devastated Greece. And my mother came here at around the age of 13, 14 years old, somewhere along those lines. And they met each other and had to hire security for their wedding. Not even joking, because Greeks and Turks, they hate each other, man. They fucking hate each other. And then they had me, this little degenerate ball of redundancy. Now, in terms of this whole fiasco with NATO, it's a powder keg, man. It's a powder keg. Now, I'm going to be a lot of political pundits, whatever, are talking about this solely as a NATO versus Turkey kind of thing. But I'm telling y'all, it goes much deeper than that. The Ottoman Empire collapsed and Greece got its independence, and shit like that. And the British took, a lot of islands that used to belong to the Ottomans, and one of them was Cyprus. Now, at some point, okay, you know what? I should just start from the NATO thing. I'll get to the history in 1 second. Turkey is blocking Finland and Sweden from joining NATO. They are doing that, and they have a list of demands that I will now read to you. I'm not even joking. They are issuing a list of demands from NATO to allow them to, allow Sweden and Finland to join. Ready? 1. NATO should classify not only the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, but also the Syrian Defense Forces, SDF, and the Fethullah terrorist organization, FETO, in the alliance's list of threats. So basically just a bunch of political groups that oppose Turkey. The United States should extradite Pennsylvania-based dissident cleric Fethullah Gulen to Turkey. There's a guy that opposed President Erdogan's rule and posed a threat to his regime for a long time, who is currently residing in Pennsylvania. He escaped Turkey to avoid the authorities. They want.
How is this legal?
All NATO members, including Sweden and Finland, must cease any activity by the PKK, SDF, and FETÖ on their territories. The United States and other NATO bodies must lift all sanctions related to Turkey's purchase of the S-400s that they purchased from Russia, including sanctions upon the Turkish Defense Industry Directorate. Turkey would not only receive the new F-16s and upgrade kits for its existing fleet, but Turkey would also be able to rejoin the F-35 program, which it was kicked out from because of their, coziness with Russia, from which it was expelled with after activating the Russian S-400s. Lastly, the United States would cease preventing Turkey from exporting military products containing Western components, aka let us fund the terrorist groups that we like, and we'll let you fund the terrorist groups that you like. So that is a list of demands that Turkey is making from
that's objectively terrifying for everybody who's like in Southeastern Europe, like
that's very terrible. That's so terrible.
That's in the Middle East. That's just like everybody around Turkey and going up. Like
Turkey is
everything
for
that
special
basically
privileges.
was what's covered by the Ottoman Empire. Oh, that's kind of ironic. Is at
President Recep Erdogan, he is a special kind of slimy piece of shit. I've been visiting Turkey for a good part of my life. I visited Turkey I think 4 times by now, 5 times I think, and I remember my family reacting to him getting elected. I remember them talking about him. I remember seeing Turkey kind of change in certain ways. I lived around Turkish Muslim people throughout my life here in Canada, and they do not like him. Now, the reason why is that he is a fascist. He's a hardline conservative. He's trying to basically shape Turkey to be more like Iran or Saudi Arabia. But because Turkey's been liberalized for so long, it's a little bit more difficult for him to just flip the switch. He can't exactly have his little Iranian revolution that he wants in his country because those conditions were completely different. He has been very aggressive towards neighboring nations. He is sponsoring groups in Libya, and he even has troops deployed over there in some cases to protect Turkish interests against the interests of NATO. He has troops deployed in Syria, and he has, and they are currently skirmishing with Kurdish forces. Turkey has been persecuting the Kurdish ethnic minority for a very long time, and the PKK that I was referring to in that list is a socialist workers' party that has been deemed a terrorist organization in Turkey that is fighting a guerrilla war against the Turkish government that goes on to this day. And the Kurdish Autonomous Zone in Syria, which is where a lot of these resistance leaders go to, which is considered an autonomous nation, it was supported by the United States in the fight against ISIS. That place has been a target for Erdogan for a very long time because it's right on Turkey's border. He does not want a Kurdish state right on his border, and the U.S. has troops there to kind of mediate the conflict. That's why Trump got in so much shit when he pulled the troops out of there.
Yeah.
And then the Turks started immediately just gunning down Kurds. And as if that wasn't enough, because Turkey did what they did to the Armenians in what is considered to be one of the first recognized genocides. Well, it depends.
Well, not if you watch Young Turks.
Yeah, not if you. Yeah, they sponsored Azerbaijan against Armenia. They have been bullying and harassing the Greeks for a long time because the islands in the Aegean Sea, which separate Greece from Turkey. You take a look at that map, they're right next to each other. There's a bunch of tiny little islands. These islands are home to Greeks and Turks alike who have been living there. Their families have been there for centuries. And another issue has been Cyprus. I have 2 more issues that I'm going to get through, and then I'm going to get to the main point. Cyprus was seized by the British from the Ottoman Empire, and it had a lot of Greek citizens on it. The Greek citizens demanded independence, and they wanted, to reunify with mainland Greece. So the British totally decided to, we're going to give in to your request. Just kidding. The British worked with the Turks to completely arm a counterinsurgency against the Greek dissidents. It lasted a few years. It was really bloody. It got really out of hand really, really fast. The British did not want to jeopardize their military bases on the island, so they gave Cyprus its independence. And then there was a bunch of fuckery when the Turks decided to land in Cyprus and start a war with the Greek dissidents of Cyprus. The British stayed neutral because whatever side won, they didn't want to have beef with, because they had military bases there that they used to monitor the Middle East, that they still use to this day, and that the Americans have been very, open to using for their own activities in the Middle East. And then Cyprus was divided. The Turkish Republic of Cyprus and then the rest of Cyprus. The Turkish Republic being only recognized by Turkey and maybe Pakistan, depending on the president at the time. And the last issue is Russia. Turkey absolutely, until a few years ago, hates Russia, simply because the guy who created the Republic of Turkey, Ataturk, he's a legendary figure in Turkish politics. He
was an amazing person.
He was an amazing person when you really look at what he managed to do for the nation. He transformed it from a backwards imperial power into a republic and gave women basically all their rights that they appreciate nowadays, but Erdogan's trying to take away. But he made a deal with the Soviet
Union. I'm bleeding. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I just realized that.
Oh, shit. You don't want to pick that up, bro.
I'll get that in a second.
He made a deal with the Soviet Union and asked Lenin for weapons and ammunition. In exchange, he would make Turkey into a socialist republic, of which the Soviets decided to, we'll give you weapons. And then at the last second, when they used those weapons to keep the Greeks from destroying the what was left of the Ottoman Empire, because the Greeks were gaining a lot of ground, they pushed the Greeks out. And then Ataturk was like, "Yeah, we're not gonna do a socialism, but thanks for the guns." And ever since then, Russia has been pissed at Turkey because on top of their imperial rivalry, they had to stab them in the back in what would have been a moment of brotherhood. At least that's what the Russians consider. Now, Erdogan has been trying to repair the relationship between Turkey and Russia, not because he's a good person, but because his relationship with Russia has given him access to weapons and planes, bombers, ammunition, everything he needs to carry out his other imperialist activities. He is a far-right fascist who has run Turkey into the fucking ground, and he knows that the people are pissed at him. So he's pandering more to the far right and engaging in rhetoric revolving around Ottoman restoration to justify his imperial efforts in other countries. And he knows that securing a decent relationship with Russia is, part of that, because, Russia really, really wants access to Bosporus.
Sorry for interrupting, but that, that actually sounds a lot like, I don't know, a country that might be pandering to far-right people at the expense of all others,
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
Very much so. Yeah.
Continue.
Now, when it comes to this specific thing, that list of demands that I read, it's Turkey basically flexing its negotiating power, because in order for a country to join NATO, it has to be fucking unanimous, and Turkey is a NATO member, and they've been exploiting their membership in NATO for a very long time. The fact that they're a NATO nation means they've been able to get away with bullying other nations for a very long time. They have had some sanctions put on them, but these sanctions are nothing compared to, say, what the U.S. would put on Venezuela or Cuba or anything like that. It's basically, no, don't do it. Don't do an imperialism. That's basically what it is. And he probably knows that if he allows NATO to absorb Sweden and Finland, Putin is going to be pissed at him, and that's going to hinder his imperial efforts all over that region. Let me be perfectly clear, and for any dumbasses out there who call themselves leftists who are going to start sucking this guy's dick because they're going to call him an anti-imperialist for this, he's not. He's an imperialist. He
The Jackson
wants,
Stinkles of the world out there.
yeah, he wants to be on the level of Russia and the US and China. He has dreams, man, that he'll never be able to achieve. And he's leveraging his position in NATO to do that. Now, what scares me about all of this is that even though nothing is for sure, they could kick him out. NATO could definitely just kick this guy out, kick Turkey out, to allow Sweden and Finland in, because it's a unanimous vote to kick someone out, with the exception of the vote of whoever's getting kicked out. You know, Turkey can't just veto themselves getting kicked out by saying, I don't want to leave. My vote counts. No, your vote doesn't count if your ass is on the line. If Turkey is kicked out of NATO, holy shit, that would just escalate this new Cold War that we're in so fucking fast.
Jesus Christ.
It is one of the biggest contributors to NATO in terms of their military budget. Their military is fucking powerful, man. They do not fuck around. In fact, they're a Middle Eastern drone power. They've been manufacturing drones like it's fucking, like they've been throwing out drones like a guy who throws fucking dollar bills at strippers. I'm not even fucking joking. And they've been selling those drones as well to, you guessed it, America. Now, if they were kicked out of NATO so that NATO could secure the northern parts and have a NATO country on Russia's border, which Finland is, by the way, if the U.S. really wants to fuck over Russia, they would have to kick out Turkey, and it would drive Turkey into the arms of the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians and all of America's enemies. Wouldn't
it also piss off Russia and China and the rest of them even further, because now Finland's now in NATO?
Yeah.
So they would just stick everything.
There's more countries in NATO. It's like, it seems like either way it'd be lose-lose.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like either way we're pissing off, like...
Yeah, it's lose-lose. Well, I mean, Turkey is, I think it was the number 5 contributor to the NATO military budget, which shows you how big of a military superpower they are.
Yeah.
If you lose that, NATO would become significantly less powerful, and all the other countries would have to pick up the slack, which would damage the economies of Europe and further, I can't really see the Americans caring that much, considering Biden just fucking approves every single fucking defense budget, just like every single president before him. But it would hurt Europe a lot. Finland
already hurting.
Yeah, it would hurt a lot. And Putin hasn't exactly been helping, because he goes, oh, Russia isn't that concerned about Sweden and Finland joining NATO. We would just be concerned if NATO put military bases in those countries. You dumb fuck. That's exactly what they would do. They're basically trying to say, don't worry about us. We're not going to do anything unless the thing that is literally going to happen happens. Like, it's not helping at all. Nobody in this entire conflict is looking for de-escalation. And for any Greeks that are watching this and stroking their cock to me shitting on Turkey, because I know they've been doing that, do not fucking get so confident with yourself, because Greece has been militarizing some of the smaller islands, putting military bases on them, including one that is literally within 12 nautical miles of Turkey's waters.
Makes me want to play Civilization.
And they're escalating the situation. Whatever route is taken here, whether Turkey is kicked out of NATO and Finland and Sweden join, or whether Turkey stays in NATO and Finland and Sweden are not able to join, it's a very, very dangerous situation. And it exposes just how fragile this so-called powerful alliance, this powerful machine that is NATO, really is. I'm going to give my voice a rest for a second, because Jesus Christ, it hurts. But I want to hear what you guys think.
Well, I have to before I'm gonna can I say real fast? I have to dip real fast. I have to go run an errand real fast. Yeah, that is terrifying, and the fact that either way, it seems like there's going to be there's a lose-lose situation. Either way, either if we kick them out, or if Finland and Sweden is let in, because then, like you said, if Finland and Sweden let in, then there's more militarization at the borders, and if Turkey isn't, if Turkey's kicked out, then they're pretty much well, they're already being a wild card, but they could be even more of a wild card, which is fucking terrifying, actually. And especially, like you said, now that because earlier, I mean, because I've not really studied that much about the Mediterranean area and how like how Erdogan has been. I know Erdogan is a fucking anti-fascist, but I didn't know to the extent of like how he's trying to conquer, take Cyprus and fucking take everything around the borders and fucking all that shit.
Fascist, not anti-fascist. Fascist.
I didn't mean to say anti-fascist.
Yeah.
But so
Definitely fascist.
yeah.
But I gotta go, y'all. I'll talk to y'all soon.
Take care, brother. Be safe.
I will.
Be safe.
Something I was going to say is, I've worked with a couple of Turkish dudes in Afghanistan, and they were great dudes, all that good stuff. But Turkey, they actually have another little card up their sleeve, and the fact that they've had their fingers in Somalia for 10-something years, they actually have control of the port, the Mogadishu port, and they have a 20-year lease on it. And so, you think that's not going to matter in their little negotiations up there? So, yeah.
So, historically speaking, the lead up to World War One, which just set up World War II and everything, was set up by a couple of things. One, colonization, the mass colonization across the world. Two, industrialization unlike ever seen before, and more exploitation of resources than ever seen before. We're seeing these first two things. 3, proxy wars that spread disease and start amping things up more and more, and making more and more layers of alliances. Because the problem with alliances is when you just have one or two, they're actually pretty strong, and there's only a couple countries on them because it's not so complicated. But the more you add it, and the more complicated it is, the more delicate it is, like a spider's web. All it has to take is just one thing to be blown up, one rich guy to get shot, and then it all goes up in flames.
It's really fucking demoralizing to know that like these people, they peddle themselves as being the defenders of freedom and democracies around the world, but the more members you have in this fucking alliance, the more delicate it is because everyone has conflicting interests, and Turkey is one of them. I feel really bad for the people back in Turkey because a lot of them are, they're friends, they're family, they're people I've, grown up around a little bit. I've seen a lot of my relatives over the years, and to know that their lives are being altered by this every single day. It's so fucking demoralizing because Turkey is another example of why capitalism and democracy are completely incompatible. Because when the capitalists take all the wealth and they siphon it from the working class and they're poor, they'll turn to anybody, including somebody like Erdogan. And once that happens, they can't turn back the clock. I haven't even mentioned that this guy has amended the Constitution like a gajillion times. I haven't even mentioned the fact that he has rigged the last few elections in his favor, in his party's favor. I haven't even mentioned the fact that he persecutes the hell out of journalists and protesters. I haven't even mentioned that this guy is just a despot, and he's done so much damage to Turkey. Even if he loses the next election, which I believe is coming up in a couple years or something like that, even if he loses the next election, it would take years for the neoliberal hacks in Turkish parliament to undo the damage that he set. The precedents that he is setting are absolutely horrific. And to know relatives in my family are affected on both sides of this, because let's be honest, if Turkey decides to pop off and go guns blazing with their imperialist efforts once they get kicked out of NATO, the people of Greece are going to suffer on those islands, on those islands. the people of Turkey are going to suffer. And that shit is going to ripple across the Greek and Turkish communities. And I'm going to have a front row seat to it. And I am not fucking looking forward to that. So I can't fucking believe that I'm saying this. But because I usually love it when NATO falls apart. But NATO, if you're gonna kick out any country, do not fucking kick out Turkey. It's not the right time. Do not do it. Do not.
They won't do that.
Do it. Please don't do it. It would cause a chain reaction in the Middle East like we've never fucking seen before. I'm not some end of the world doomer type. I am a guy who is of half Greek and half Turkish descent. I'm obsessed with politics because I get no pussy. And you people need to understand that this is not a good situation. Kick out anyone else. Kick out fucking Germany. Kick out Australia. I don't give a fuck. Just don't kick out the guys who are ready to go guns blazing once they know they have nothing left to lose. Please.
Yeah, and so, and I completely agree with you. And we're seeing this popping up, and we're seeing like more and more white supremacy, coming up in places. Like there was always white supremacy, but we're seeing it more against minorities, against refugees, climate refugees, and it's going in. Increasing, and they're not de-escalating. Nobody's de-escalating. So they want us to fight. They want us to do things. They want us to rile up, continue to rile up, because when war eventually wakes up, because war will eventually wake up, because we're just on the path to do it. Like there's no way going back from it now.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a deep serious. I'm saying it as a historian who has studied this.
Well, you could say World War III has already started.
But like that war is going to break out soon, like major war, like war that even the wealthiest countries in the world will find it possible to ignore. And I'm not even talking about Ukraine. I'm saying like even bigger.
Yeah.
And it's so there's two options. One, we continue to fight at the hands of those in power, and the capitalist system just continues to eat itself like an Ouroboros, and we all eventually die due to climate collapse and disease. Or we still have climate collapse and disease, but we happen to survive because instead of having those in power riling us up and making us hate the people who do not look like us, we fight back. We join together and we fight back.
Well, you mentioned World War I earlier. World War I is I know it's really old. It's like a century and a quarter at this point. But World War I was an apocalyptic event for its time. It was called the War to End All Wars because it was the bloodiest war ever fought at the time.
And I don't think it's given enough understanding. Well, because of how severe it is. World War II, in my opinion, isn't as big.
Because it was gonna happen, right? Because it was a side effect of the First World War. But the First World War resulted in so much chaos. The tipping point for all that exploitation and shit, it reached its boiling point. That is what propelled the Russian Revolution. That is what propelled socialist revolutions across the world, socialist movements. And I know at this point that collapse is literally it's creeping forward every single day. We're not going to avoid it. The only thing we can do as socialists is to seize the opportunity within chaos that it creates so that we could usurp the power of those who are hurting us and use socialism to literally cope and survive all the horrible shit that we're going to go through. But
those things all have to be built now, though.
They need to be built now, and that's what we're fucking doing.
Right, which is why you need to be. Sorry, Austin, you continue. Like,
I was going to say that something with all this and Roe v. Wade, to little sidetrack. Austin, Texas, the city council there are passing ordinances to protect abortion. That's a city council. Now, as far as it's standing yada yada, but being in a city council I think being part of your local government will be important for that transition.
Yeah.
I think so as well. Like, when I said that voting is pointless, I mean largely at the presidential level, it and the national level, it's really not going to make much of a difference at this point. However, on the local level, there's still a lot of good that can be done, and there's still a lot of people that probably wouldn't get elected otherwise. Like let's be real, I probably would never be elected to a national office. I don't think any of us would.
I don't want to.
I don't want, and I don't want the compromise that would come with it. Uh, but local politics is definitely something that is worth getting involved in, and worth, if you're not going to run, supporting people who have policies that you care about and who are willing to act on them, despite the hate and stuff that they're going to get, because they will get hate into office. And like I say, like going community gardens, doing organizing public free libraries, like on your book corners, doing soup kitchens, doing everything you can to organize and work with people to try to band together. Unions are good. Like unions, ideally we need to abolish capitalism, but unions are an essential step toward doing that.
Essentially, what we're trying, what we all want to get across every single episode is that if you're scared of this shit, you're scared of corporate exploitation, you're scared of white supremacy, you're scared of war, you're scared of all that, good, you should be scared. You should channel that fear into direct action, whether it be in your local city council, whether it be with a local socialist group you have, whether it be within your local union. You should project your values as much as you can into the actions that you can take and that you do take. It starts with all of us. It starts on the local level. We're called the People's Voice Network for a reason. And before I end this broadcast, I want to hit that message.
And by the way, not all of us are socialists. Like,
Not all of us are socialists, but
I'm a communist, but
some of us identify with different leftist denominations, but it doesn't really matter what side you fall on as long as you are against this machine. You have to show that you're against this machine, work with others who are against this machine from a local level all the way until it hits the federal offices, and you're knocking on their door demanding, respect, and demanding payment, and demanding, an end to all this brutality. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Sorry if this went on for 4 more minutes more than it usually does, but it's okay.
Oh, I actually have a good point to put out.
Oh, sure.
During the Great Depression, which was one of the lowest points in the U.S.'s history, a group of people from across creeds were able to band together and march on Washington in order to demand jobs, to demand unemployment benefits, to demand all the social safety net that was established during the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and form unions. And they were successful. Like, FDR had to give in to demands, and they actually backed down a little bit, and that's where the New Deal wasn't expansive as it could have been. Think about that. The New Deal was the compromise solution. So imagine what it would be like if we were all working together and we're all in concert.
Don't compromise. Don't ever compromise. All right, everybody. I have never ended one of these panels before, but I guess, there's a good time to start, anything. So thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Before we end, Austin, Novi, and let you guys have anything coming up. Do anything you want to plug?
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to say this Saturday, I'm supposed to do some security at abortion rights march, and it's more than just about abortion rights if you ain't figured that shit out yet. So I'll be there on Saturday, and we'll get something up on professional lapses. It'll be all right.
All right.
Yeah. Novi, what about you?
So, on my show, Live from the Empire, me and the team that we're working with, we are actually conducting a long form investigation onto the energy crisis. In each episode, we're going into a different topic. However, for the next couple breaks, we'll be taking a brief break from that format because I will be undergoing extensive surgery. Instead, we will be having interviews with everybody from People's Voice because we kind of figured you'd like to get to know us a little better, know where we're coming from. And also, instead of us having to answer the same questions multiple times in a row, such as why I wear the headscarf, it's in the video.
Hell yeah.
So those will be accessible, and we've actually shot the first two. They will be coming out. Z's will be coming out this Friday. K's yours will be coming out next Friday, I believe. And ADC's, we'll have to work on the schedule for that. We're either going to do it once a week or twice a week. But please stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoy those.
Hell yeah. Thank you, everyone, once again for coming out. Good night, and peace be with all of you.